Dr. King led in such a way that he left a legacy that we will remember and celebrate tomorrow. And as a leader in Jesus' movement, Dr. King became a pivotal figure in our country's struggle for civil rights. And he became a truly great leader who made a powerful impact in our nation, and he made this world a better place. And he was a great leader because he learned to make selfless decisions. Now, what many people don't know is that early in his ministry, he made a selfless decision that forever determined the scope of his influence. You see, when he graduated with a doctorate from Boston University, he had the opportunity to return to his father's church, and I've actually been there. It's the Ebenezer Baptist Church in downtown Atlanta. It's a very inspiring place. There's a center there. My wife and I have been there. And he had the opportunity to go back to this big Baptist church in the heart of Atlanta with his father. That would have been the comfortable decision. That would have been the easy decision. That would have been the safer decision. That would have been the decision that would have been easier on his family and probably better for his finances. But instead, driven by a radical virtue that Jesus taught, he made a selfless decision. He went to an unknown small little Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama. And from these humble beginnings, he became one of the greatest leaders in our history because he learned how to make selfless decisions. Great leaders make selfless decisions. And according to Jesus, what makes us great is learning to become selfless ourselves. That's what makes our lives great, and that is what makes our relationships great. But last week, I pointed out how social scientists have shown that we have become a nation that really struggles with being selfless. If you missed the message last week, I urge you to go watch it on our CityChurch SA YouTube channel. I think it's that important because I pointed out and drew some quotes from an article in Psychology Today that documents the shocking rise of narcissism in our country. Dr. Peter Gray, after 30 years of research, concluded this: 70% of Americans today are more narcissistic than in previous generations. We're becoming less and less selfless. Well, what is narcissism? The definition of narcissism is an inflated view of self, puffed up self, coupled with relative indifference toward others. And we see the rise of narcissism in our culture in various ways, sometimes big ways, sometimes small ways, sometimes in ways I can't even wrap my hands around. For example, I came across this report in HQ Press, and it's all about selfies. According to HQ Press, 93 million selfies are posted every day. And according to them, on Instagram, a selfie is posted every second. Every second. And according to that same report, during a 6-year period, 259 people died in the quest for extreme selfies. Y'all, people are falling off of cliffs and tall buildings, all in an attempt to get a good enough selfie, an extreme enough selfie that they'll get enough likes to where they'll feel good about themselves. People go after social media likes with this hunger. It becomes a determining factor of their self-worth. I've got to get the right photo so I can get enough likes to feel good about myself. And when I don't get enough likes, I feel bad about myself. And it's all about a focus on the self. And according to Jesus, that is not what makes you great or your life great or your relationships great. Now, in this series, we're focusing on a radical virtue that Jesus asserts is the key to experiencing greatness in life and greatness in relationships. And I call this radical virtue upside down leadership. Everybody leads in some way. Some of us have bigger areas where we lead. Some of us, it's just smaller areas where we lead, but we all lead. You are a leader. Will you say that with me? I am a leader. I am a leader. And by that I mean every one of us, every person listening to me has certain spheres of influence. And in those spheres of influence, you assert a certain amount of power and authority in that sphere of influence as a leader. And upside down leadership, it's all about how you view and how you use your power and your authority and your influence. Upside down leaders use their influence with the focus to give rather than get. Upside down leaders use their influence to serve others instead of being served. Upside down leaders use their influence with a focus on others instead of focus on self. And upside down leaders, they make selfless decisions on a daily basis. And isn't that where the tension comes? Because can we just all be honest? We're not naturally selfless. Nobody listening to me, including me, none of us are naturally selfless. I mean, when we come out of the womb, we come out with a natural kind of self-focus, right? Babies cry to get what they want. Toddlers throw tantrums to get what they want. Teenagers rebel to get what they want. We all come out of the womb with a natural kind of self-focus. And that is what makes it difficult for all of us to become upside down leaders, because what it means is that somewhere in your life, somebody has to teach you how to make selfless decisions. I mean, you hope it's your parents or maybe a teacher or a coach or a mentor or a spiritual leader, but somewhere along the way, you have to learn how to make selfless decisions that will help you become an upside down leader. But as I said, we all struggle with this, all of us, including Jesus' inner core of disciples. Now, for 3 years, Jesus has been taking this inner core of disciples, the 12, and preparing them to become leaders of his movement once he left this world. And his intent was that they would lead his movement with his power and his authority. He wanted to transfer his power and authority to them, but he could see that they were struggling with making selfless decisions. So they traveled to Jerusalem together for the last time. He knows what's coming. And he can see that they're still struggling with making selfless decisions, the kind of selfless decisions that upside down leaders must make. And so as they gather together, they're going to have a meal. And as John in his gospel describes what's happening, he first begins with a description of Jesus at this meal. And this is what he says, and I want us to notice the motivating factor behind upside down leaders. This is John chapter 13, verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival, that's this big Jewish festival where they're going to have this great meal together. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Here, Jesus demonstrates the key motivating factor, what drives an upside down leader. It's love. Why put others first? Love. Why serve others instead of being served? Love. Why use your power, your authority, and put other people first with it instead of yourself? Love. Why make selfless decisions? Love. Love is the key to everything as an upside down leader. Love must become the driving force, City Church. Love must become the driving force in all of our relationships. Great marriages aren't driven by perfect spouses. They're driven by love. Great families aren't driven by perfect parents and perfect kids. They're driven by love. Great workplaces aren't driven by perfect bosses and perfect employees. They're driven by love. Great schools are not driven by perfect administrators and perfect teachers and perfect students. They're driven by love. We've got to get this principle, City Church. Great relationships are made by imperfect people who choose to love other imperfect people. All right? Can you say that with me? Let's all say it together out loud. Everybody watching online, you say it too. You ready? Great relationships are made by imperfect people who choose to love other imperfect people. Man, wouldn't that make the world a better place? Well, love is what makes relationships great. And Jesus, we're told, he's driven by love. He's motivated by love. But he also has something else. And this is so significant for upside down leaders. He has a keen sense of his own self-awareness. This is John 13:3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. And here's what John's telling us in this description. Jesus knows who he is. He was with the Father before he was born as a human, and he's going back there. He knows who he is. He's the Son of God, and he knows he has all power. He has more power than anyone has ever had. So Jesus knows who he is, and he recognizes his power. He recognizes his sphere of influence. And for you to become the upside down leader that God sees in you, you need to see yourself the way God sees you, for who you really are. It's important for you to embrace who God has created you to be, to get a clear sense of who you are as a child of God, as a follower of Jesus, so that you then understand what is my sphere of influence, what power do I have, and then the key as an upside down leader is how you use the power, how you use your authority. So let's get clear. The greatest person in the room where they're getting ready to have dinner is Jesus. In fact, he's the greatest person in any room. And he has more power than anyone in human history. The key is, how is Jesus going to use his power? How is he going to assert his authority? Well, as his disciples are gathering together for the Passover meal, Jesus demonstrates for all history what upside down leaders ought to look like. And so let me set up the scene. In Jesus' day, most of the roads in their cities were like packed dirt, and people wore sandals, and so naturally people's feet got dusty. And typically when you would go to a meal, the host of wherever you were having the meal would provide water and a towel to wash your feet. It was just a part of their custom, part of their culture. And typically, if you had a servant, if you were wealthy enough as a host to have a servant, your servant would wash people's feet as they entered. If you didn't have a servant, typically one of your children would be there by the door to wash people's feet as they entered. Whoever did it, it was considered one of the more demeaning responsibilities in any household. So Jesus and his disciples, now if you picture this big room and their tables, weren't like our tables, their tables would be about this high, and they would lean on a pillow with one elbow, and then they would eat with their other hand, normally their right hand. And so if you picture Jesus has gathered with his disciples, they're all down and their feet are going away from the table, and Jesus looks around and he can see they all got dirty feet. Nobody in the room was willing to wash anybody's feet. It was beneath them. Nobody wanted to flinch. Nobody wanted to do what a servant would do. So Jesus makes a selfless decision, and he paints a picture for all of us of what being an upside down leader really looks like. This is John 13, verse 4. So, now let me set this up. He's driven by love. He knows he's God's son. He has all power, all authority. That's what we just read. So, he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin, and he began to wash his disciples' feet. The greatest person in the room, the greatest person of all time, makes a selfless decision. He takes off his outer clothing. That in itself was a symbol of humility. In their day, only servants took off their outer clothing to do menial tasks. The Lord did it. And he begins to wash their feet. Nobody else in the room would do it. Nobody else is driven by such great love. So Jesus does it himself. He takes his great power, his great authority, his influence, and he makes a selfless decision, and he kneels before his disciples' feet and washes them. Upside down leaders kneel. Upside down leaders take their authority, take their power, and they kneel before others. It's a posture, and we have to get this, City Church, that we must all have as leaders in whatever spheres of influence we have. That upside down leaders kneel. And so that is what really will make our relationships great, is bringing the posture of kneeling into those relationships. And so I want to ask you a question. Are you the kind of leader who kneels? What if I ask people in your sphere of influence? What would they say? Are you the kind of leader who kneels? Well, picture Jesus going around the table, kneeling before every one of his disciples, washing their feet, he's gone through 10, now he's gone through 11. He saves the best one for last, because this is the person he's told, you're going to lead my movement. You're going to be the primary leader. When I leave this world, you're going to have to take it over. And I need you to lead the rest of these young men to keep my movement going. And so he finally gets to Peter. And you get the sense that they're all feeling kind of shocked by what Jesus is doing. But then he gets to Peter. And notice what happens. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. Peter questions Jesus as to why he is doing this. And it's because of the implications for himself. He sees himself as being like the number 2 guy. And it's like, if you're the greatest person in the room and you do the most menial task, well, that has implications for me too. Yeah, you see where he's going. He's like, I don't want to do that. And don't you get, he's going, Jesus, this ain't right. You're the great one, and why are you washing our feet? This don't make sense. Jesus, you don't understand. And Jesus says, no, it's you don't understand. And that's one of the signs that you struggle with upside down leadership. When you don't understand selfless actions. The kind of selfless actions that lead you to kneel before others. Do you ever think that the selfless decisions that other people make sound like bad ideas? You ever thought that? Have you ever tried to talk somebody out of some selfless decision that they've made? Because you just don't, you're like, that don't sound right. One of the signs that you struggle with upside down leadership is you don't understand the selfless decisions that come with being an upside down leader. Well, Peter just can't let this go. It's why I like Peter. I like people who are just like who they are. And Peter just can't let this go. He's not having any of it. And so notice what Peter says next to Jesus. No, you will never wash my feet. Isn't that, he just called him Lord. And he says, no, I'm not going to let you do it. Isn't that audacity? What we see here is pride surfacing in Peter. We see arrogance surfacing in Peter because he sees the greater person serving the lesser persons, and he's not having any of it. And let me tell you what I think is going on here. Remember last week we talked about the power pyramid view of power? And it's the power pyramid view is all about who's on top. Because then you control and you order and you rule over other people. You lord it over other people. I think this is the power pyramid that Peter is picturing. That's a lot of peas in a row right there. I think this is the power pyramid that Peter is picturing. Oh man, that'll preach, baby. Woo! All right. All right. So He sees at the top is Jesus. He calls him Lord. He knows. But next, it's him and the other 11. But they're sort of a little bit below him even. And then it's all the other followers who are going to have to do what I say. And then it's all the other people. That's the power pyramid Peter is thinking of. And when Jesus kneels before his disciples, he turns the power pyramid upside down. This is the way Jesus pictures power. The one with the greatest power serves everybody else. He serves his disciples. He wants his disciples to serve his followers, and he wants all of his followers to serve all people with whatever power, whatever authority that they have. One of the signs that you struggle with upside down leadership is the tendency to interpret the actions of others through selfish eyes instead of selfless eyes. To defend the right side up pyramid. If you find yourself defending, you ever had to use your role or your power and like call out somebody? Like power up on them? That flows from this view of power, not this one. And if that's a tendency in you, you got to deal with that if you're going to be an upside down leader. Well, Peter tells Jesus, you will never wash my feet. Notice how Jesus answers. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Here's what Jesus says. This is my movement. I am the leader of this movement. And if you will not let me perform this selfless act on you, you cannot be a leader in my movement. I will remove you from your role as a leader in my movement, because my leaders, people who lead my movement, must be upside down leaders. And upside down leaders get selfless actions. And so he basically tells Peter, if you don't let me do this, I'm going to remove you from your role. I'm going to get somebody else. Now you would think Peter would finally get it, right? I mean, come on, somewhere along the way he gets it, right? Wrong. Notice what Peter says in response. Well then, Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Okay, so first, can I just say gross? I mean, if I'm getting ready to eat, I don't want some other dude washing my hands and washing my hair. Yuck. Notice what's going on here. Peter takes control of the situation. He's a control guy. You ever been around control people? They gotta be, he wants to call the shots. He takes charge. He gives orders. Think about what he's doing right here. He orders the person he just called Lord, to do something. He's a mess. One of the signs that you struggle with upside down leadership is a tendency to have to be in control, to have to call the shots, to have to give the orders. Oh, I'm making some of you squirm right now. I can see it. Or you're sitting by somebody. Well, Jesus, so think about your sphere of influence. Do you struggle? Are you a control freak? I mean, what if I asked your spouse? What if I asked your kids? Oh, wait, I got an amen. What if I asked your coworkers? Well, Jesus finally convinces Peter to let him wash Peter's feet. Then Jesus tells them why. This is John 13:13. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, because that is who I am. I am your teacher, and I am the Lord of all. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Now, what is Jesus saying here? I don't think he's saying, because in our culture, like when you go to somebody's house, do they wash your feet? No. In fact, we would think that was weird. But in their culture, it wasn't. And some church traditions, they practice foot washing, and we've done that at times here at City Church. But it's a picture, it's a metaphor. And here's what Jesus is saying to us, all of his followers. As upside down leaders, you must kneel before others. Follow my example. And be the kind of people who kneel. Be the kind of people who make selfless decisions on behalf of others you're seeking to serve. And basically, Jesus says, that's what I'm telling you to do. That's the kind of upside down leaders I want. I want the kind that will make selfless decisions and kneel. And that's what we're gonna do. Upside down leaders kneel. And you kneel by looking for opportunities to make selfless decisions in everyday life. Kneelers are driven by love, just like Jesus. Kneelers have a kind of self-awareness instead of self-deception. Kneelers use their power to serve others rather than powering up on others. Kneelers use their power to give rather than to get. Kneelers put the needs of others ahead of their own needs. Upside down leaders kneel. Great leaders kneel, great spouses and parents kneel, great bosses and managers kneel, great teachers and coaches kneel. If you want to change the dynamic of your relationships, kneel. If you want a great marriage, kneel. If you want a great family, kneel. If you want a great workplace, if you want a great school, kneel. Okay, so I want you to think now, we're going somewhere with all this. I want you to think now of your sphere of influence. Is there a relationship in that sphere of influence where you know you need to kneel? Maybe this is a relationship where you've powered up with your power and authority in an inappropriate way, and you realize, that was not right. I need to go back and make things right. I need to kneel. And maybe you're gonna literally kneel before that person, but maybe it's just humbling yourself. Maybe it's looking for an opportunity to serve. And as an expression of your commitment to kneel, if you're sensing that there's a relationship where you need to kneel, I'm gonna invite you to kneel today. And so as the music begins to play, I want to ask if everybody would stand, everybody in the video cafe as well. And if you know there's a relationship where you need to kneel, then I ask you to slip out of the aisle, and we've got pillows up here in the front. You can kneel here in the front. You can kneel in the aisle somewhere near your chair. Those of you in the video cafe, the same, just slip out of your seat and find a place to kneel. But if the Lord is showing you there's a relationship where you need to kneel, I'm asking you to kneel today before the Lord as a commitment that you will kneel before that person. And so I invite you to come now, wherever you want to find space to kneel. I'm gonna kneel with you in just a moment, and once everybody is in their place, then I want to pray over us. And if you're watching online, just kneel right there at home, wherever you're watching this service. And I'm gonna pray over us as we kneel before the Lord as a commitment that we're gonna kneel before some people in our lives. You can just kneel in the aisle. Lord Jesus, in your presence, we just say thank you. Thank you for your great love. Thank you for the selfless decisions that you made in your life that served us all and benefited us all. Thank you for setting such a good example as an upside down leader. And here in your presence before you, we kneel before you. And we say we want to kneel before other people. And there are certain relationships where we recognize we need to humble ourselves and kneel and make selfless decisions to serve. And so, Lord, my prayer is that you would give us the faith we need to do that, the courage we need to do that, the inspiration we need to do that. And then, Lord, as we kneel in these relationships, I ask that you would do something in the heart of those we kneel before to soften their heart. If there's been division or contention, let there be peace. Let there be restoration. Let there be oneness and unity. Yes, Lord. So do something in their hearts as we kneel before them and as we serve them. And then, Lord, give us a heart to kneel in every relationship in our lives and teach us what that looks like day by day. In Jesus' name, I pray.